Good evening. Today we are moving on to the third chapter of Business Analysis Practice Standard, Practice Guide, and this business analysis planning is actually the second domain of business analysis. The first domain we covered was need assessment, and we covered that thoroughly, and now we are moving on to the business analysis planning. Now in business analysis planning, we will be doing three major things, and that is, first of all, we'll conduct and refine the stakeholder analysis, which we had already done, which was high level. Now we are going to go into the detail of the stakeholder analysis. Then we will develop a business analysis plan. And third, we will design the work plan for the same plan. So business analysis planning will be covered in these major headings. First, we'll talk about a little about the overview of this section, what business analysis planning means, then what is the importance of business analysis planning, and then, as I said, the three steps: conduct and refine the stakeholder analysis, create the business analysis plan, and plan the business analysis work. So these are the three steps we will be going through. First of all, the overview. What are the analysis activities? From the business analysis point of view, planning consists of all those activities that are performed in order to ensure that the optimal business analysis approach is selected for the project. So we do understand that as we normally talk about the efficiencies and effectiveness, here also we do not want to waste our effort. We want to only use those activities which actually help us perform our business analysis work, as well as they are the optimized approaches. How do we do that? We understand stakeholders are thoroughly identified and analyzed. Although we did talk about stakeholder and their analysis earlier as well in need assessment, because we were assessing the needs of the stakeholders, but that analysis was not this much detailed. Now we have to plan in detail, therefore we have to see the needs and requirements of the stakeholders in detail. And further on, once we will be in a later domain, when we will be eliciting the requirements from the stakeholders, then we will be even more involved with the stakeholder. Business analysis activities and deliverables are defined and agreed to in this chapter. Processes that will be used for validating, verifying, and approving requirements and solutions are acceptable to the key stakeholders. This is checked with the stakeholders. We make a roadmap and show them how the things will move, how we will collect the requirements, how we will develop the solutions, how will the stakeholders review it and accept it. And only when it is acceptable solution to all, then we will move on with the next domain. Process of proposing changes to the requirement is defined and understood. Although we will collect the requirements naturally at a later stage, but we will formulate the mechanism for collecting and approving the requirements in the previous step. But now, if some requirements are to be changed, what would be the process? That is exactly the change request process, change control process. This is to be defined and understood again by all the stakeholders. Key stakeholders are aware of and support the activities and time commitment required to complete the requirement effort, as if there are no misgivings afterwards. So please keep the stakeholder along with you through this planning process, as if he has correct expectations from you. He should not be expecting the analysis work to go like a lightning. He should know why it is important and what all we need to do in analysis, and we should not be skipping anything, naturally with the blessing of the stakeholders. Stakeholders must be on board with us. Then we talked about the business analysis approach. What is the mechanism? What is the approach you are going to be selecting? So that selection also will be done in planning. It is simply a method the business analyst uses when managing and performing the business analysis activities. The approach is described in the business analysis plan. So in the next step, after we have done with the stakeholders, we have understood them completely, the next step would be to develop a business analysis plan, and in that business analysis plan we will describe our business analysis approach. Naturally, you understand we have got a number of tools and techniques. So out of those, we will select the most appropriate approach and we will go about it. And we did talk about the approaches in our need assessment also when we were developing the business case. So we did recommended some approaches. Now, business analysis planning, we will see how the business analysis planning is conducted. It is heavily dependent on the selected project life cycle. So if we have already selected a project life cycle, business analysis will be tailored around it, will be in alignment with the life cycle. So if you have a custom designed cycle, then business analysis process has to know that and understand that and follow that. When a planning activity is performed differently across life cycles or not performed at all, the differences are noted. So first of all, I would say planning activity should be performed. If it is not performed, you are leaving something out and it will not be comfortable for you to develop a plan and to execute it. So you should not be leaving it out. So this is, if it is not to be performed exactly in accordance with the life cycle, then it has to be properly described and justified. And if it is not to be performed, these differences have to be noted with reasons and justifications. You see, there is no one approach to business analysis planning that will work for every project. So every time you are doing the business analysis, you may come up with a different approach to tailor according to the requirements of that specific problem. The business analyst should understand the context and project characteristics enough to ensure the planning activities are sufficiently sized for the situation. So whatever planning activities we select, they should be appropriately designed. They should be enough and necessary. Anything which is not necessary or which is not sufficient should not be included. Sufficiency is a key point. Ji Adil?
So I need to understand that during the planning, how we are going to analyze the project characteristics, context and project characteristics.
Project life cycle?
Yes, sir.
Okay. You see, project life cycle is suggested beforehand. You see, as far as the project planning is concerned, that is a different subject. Here we select the project life cycle that is done by the project manager, and as I explained earlier, the business analysis planning is done before the project has even started. You have to come up with certain suggestions. You have to do the whole business analysis. If you do not have an approach, the most appropriate approach has to be selected, and for that I need to have some most appropriate life cycle. So normally life cycle is decided by the organization. In most of the cases, organizations have pre-selected mechanisms that if this is going to be this kind of project, then this is the life cycle we are going to use. So life cycles are pre-decided and they are adopted. Yes, please.
Life cycle. Can I say it's the phases of the project which we take it in the PMP? For example, the project will be initiated, then it will be planned, requirement gathering will take place, planning, then execution.
Who told you those were the phases? Initiation, planning, these are not
No,
phases. You are absolutely wrong about it. Project life cycle is completely a different thing. And that has something to do with the conduct of the project. Initiation, planning, execution, monitoring and control, and close, they are not the processes. I'm sorry, they are not the phases of the project. Please correct yourself. Phases are
yes, sir.
divided according to the work of the project. If you are constructing a house, in how many phases you want to do it? Every phase should be surgically separate from the other phase. Every phase will have to be treated like a project by itself. Every phase will have a deliverable. But essentially, the phases are not, overlapping. But later on, we can create a little overlap. But if you take the process groups are completely overlapping. They can never be called as phases. You got my point?
Yes, sir. So, can you give the life cycle an example?
Okay, you are constructing a house, right? This is a one job.
Yes.
In the construction of house, how can you divide the whole work of the construction in some major phases? What could be your first phase? Don't look at the project management. Look at the work of the house. So what could be
So,
your
if I take it, the first phase is I have to design the house. Let's say I need to hire a architect.
design the house and any other work? This may be just an activity. Any other work you want to do in this?
Okay. I need to purchase the land.
Okay, very good. Any other thing?
Um, okay. There's one. It could be counted as activity. I need to perform the feasibility for the area. I have to check the area for my living. Is it feasible for my family?
Okay. So what if I say that these are all the pre-construction activities which you have grouped together into a phase? Acquisition of land, feasibilities, designs, and architecture, maybe, permission from, the government departments and utilities and whatever, so coordinating with them, maybe clearing of the land and all those things. This could be the first process. And what is the result of the process? What will be the deliverable of this process?
The output of it, it's some sort of document or something.
Not necessarily.
Basically, what will?
I will have a finished, ready land to start construction with all
Yes.
the permissions available,
Yes.
right? I don't
Okay.
seek any
Agreed.
permission. So this is the output I desire. And when I get this output, when I get this deliverable, only then can I move on to the next phase, right?
Yes.
What could be
Yes.
my next phase?
I have to hire a contractor to build the house for me.
Okay. And think a bit
Um,
more in detail.
okay.
Contractor will build the
So
whole
if
house.
I, sorry.
Contractor will be building the whole house, and the whole house may have many
Yes.
phases. So let's break
Yes.
the work.
Okay. So there's a work of masonry. There's a work of carpenter. There's a work of
Okay,
electrician, plumber.
these works you are talking about, they all can be done in parallel and they are randomly being selected. You go in approach
Yes.
in a way that what is next to be done. Once you have the land ready, what do you do next?
I'll start digging the land
Yes, exactly.
for the pillars.
Yes, you see the demarcation of land, digging of the land, digging of the foundations, preparation, construction, laying of the foundations, and all that. So let us say all the work which is underground is to be completed in phase 2, right?
Okay.
Which
Okay.
includes digging, demarcation, foundation, whatever. So all this is phase 2. So once the phase 2 is completed, what we will get? We will get the underground structure ready.
Yes.
Now I can move on to the next phase. That could be constructing the gray structure. Gray structure means the building itself, right? And
Yes.
that could include everything you were saying, you know, the construction of walls and plastering and masoning and etc., etc., etc. So once the superstructure is ready, that will be the finish of my this third phase. And the output would be the gray structure completely ready. But gray structure completely ready does not mean that it is ready to occupy. So you do the finishing touches, you put in the doors and masonries and other electricity and other things, paints, distempers and all those things, and you make it yet another phase. That is your fourth phase. So you see, we will have to create the phases according to the work of the project, not according to project management processes. Because project management processes are not unique. They will always happen on every project. And they are overlapping. They're grossly overlapping. You see, when you are doing monitoring and control, you are actually doing execution at the same time also. And you are also replanning things. So
Sir, uh, so see, my point over here is that all right, if I try to map all the activities which we have just built for house construction
mhm.
into the phases of project management. So if I try to map over those, so I can easily see it can be easily fitted with each other. For example,
Mm.
initiation I can take today. I think that there should be a house. Okay, so that's I'm the sponsor and I'm going to provide the business case to myself, for example, or you are my brother and I'm asking you to build a house for me. Okay, so it means I'm giving you a business case and I'm your sponsor. So you are going to initiate the project. You will take it as a project. So and you yourself is going to live in that home. So the all those activities can take place. So from your point of view, what I am considering is the project management activities are not related to it. This is what I understood. That's why I just
They are related. They are
told
related.
the whole.
They are related, but they are not included in the phases. You see, okay, let me describe. You said initiation. What I am saying is the project management processes have a tendency to repeat themselves, to overlap themselves,
Yes.
which makes them
Yes.
not unique, right? What we want to achieve in our phases
Yes.
is an accomplishment at the end of every phase, right? And every phase is to be treated like a
Yes.
project. If you treat every phase as a project, every phase will have a charter. Every phase will be initiated. Every phase will be planned, executed, monitoring and controlled, and closed. And then some
Agree.
deliverable comes out. Then you move on to the next phase. So the project management processes should not be called as phases because they are repetitive in nature, not only in the whole project, but in every phase they will be repeated.
Okay. So you want to say these are the processes, right?
Yes, so we are not concerned about those processes. We are more concerned about the work of the project. Whatever kind of the project you are doing, you design your phases accordingly and explicitly define
So
each phase with a deliverable.
sir, I'm pretty confused. I'm pretty confused. Sorry, I'm taking your time, but I need to correct all these my DMRs. So first of all, let me ask in my way. Initiation is a phase or
It is not a phase. It is not
it's
a
a process. It's a process.
it is a process group. It is not even a process. It is a process group. So
Yes. Okay. Agreed.
you correct yourself. This is a very big mistake, very big mistake. Initiation, planning, execution, monitoring and control, and closing, they are not the project phases. They are the project process groups.
That's okay.
So phases,
Okay, sir.
look at the project life cycle from the perspective of the work of the project, the technical work of the project. The technical work of the project has to be divided into certain portions, as if every portion should be able to yield some product, some deliverable, and that deliverable should
Okay. So you
be defined. Now,
okay. So you're saying is that in project life cycle, in every cycle there is a deliverable, right?
in every cycle there is a,
In every phase. In every there is a deliverable. Output is a
yeah, every
deliverable.
phase has a deliverable. Every phase has a deliverable.
Okay.
Right. Okay. For
Okay, sir.
understanding it even better, you must go through the second chapter of PMBOK. It is given at the end of the second chapter, project life cycles. You must understand that very clearly, because I see that your life cycle concepts are not really very clear.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Let me also define that I said that it will depend upon the project, how work of the project, how the project life cycle is defined. But in most of the organizations, project life cycles are pretty much standard. For example, there is a company which is a web development uh, company, software house, and they only do one kind of job, and that is they develop dynamic websites. Okay, so
Okay.
naturally the work, whatever project they do, they will have a life cycle predefined. That when first we will collect data from the customer and put it into a requirement document, then we'll do this, then we'll do this. So they have divided their project into standard 4 or 5 phases. Now every project they start, that project, because it is of the similar nature, every project will have the same life cycle. So this is mandated by the organization, that because we do only this kind of job and we have standardized this project life cycle, therefore we'll be using that. So if that be the case, we already know what is the life cycle. So even at the time of business analysis planning, we would know what is the project life cycle, right?
Right.
In case there is not a single life cycle, some organizations have more than one standard life cycles. They say if we are doing a software development project, this is the life cycle we'll use. If we are using a web development project, this is the life cycle we'll use, and so on and so forth. So again, they are predefined. Only in those cases where you do not have some predefined organization mandated project life cycle, you will look at your project. The first option you have is to look at the industry practices. If I am doing a mechanical project, then you must see that how do the people do the mechanical projects? Is there a standard life cycle for that? If there is, then we will follow that. If I cannot find a life cycle, only then I will create my own life cycle for a project. So after this discussion, you should be able to understand that project life cycle is something which is uh, already pretty much known what kind of life cycle we are going to be using. And business analysis planning can use that project life cycle. Do you get me?
Sorry, I'm lost in the last sentence.
Okay. What I'm saying is, although I agree with you that project life cycle is finalized in project management by the project manager when he develops the scope statement. But as I told you, project life cycle is normally pretty much standardized by the organization, and we already know which project life cycle will suit this project. So even when the project is not existing, and their business analyst is trying to plan, he can look at the organizational standard practices and see which is the most appropriate project lifecycle available in the standards of the organization, which can be most feasibly used for this project. And he can start his business planning work, business analysis planning work according to that lifecycle. And it is pretty much sure that the same life cycle will be used by the project manager. And if it is not used, then this is a disparity which may occur, and we must accept it, that business analysis was done on another life cycle, but project manager decided to change the life cycle, and thus the business analysis work is no more valid. As we already understand that business analysis is also a continuous process. So when something like this will happen, business analyst will revise his planning. While the project is going on, he will revise his plan and they will coordinate with each other. Got it?
Okay, sir.
Right.
Yes, sir.
Okay, when a planning activity is performed differently, we have talked about it. I just explained this thing. If you see,
Sir,
yeah,
so what I understood so far that the planning is taking place only for the business analyst section. So
yes.
once the business analysis is complete, whereas the business scope document is complete, the
Hmm.
planning is again business analysis and iterative thing. It will also continue with the project activities.
Hmm.
But this planning will play a major role for the creation of the business document, right?
For what?
It will play a major role or the planning till the business scope document is created.
Right, but you see, the project planning is not included in it. All the work
Yes,
of
yes, I agree.
requirements gathering, designing the things, how the change request will be applicable, these things will be the subject of business analysis planning.
Okay.
So
All right, sir.
that will not harm your project in any way. The only thing could be that your business analysis might go astray, and it is not properly aligned. Just like you have not done any business analysis, you have not done any planning. Still, we can do the projects. Or you have done wrong planning. Still, we can do
Yes.
the project. But it is advisable, if your planning is right, business planning is right, your project planning will be greatly facilitated. So business analysis plan can
Okay.
be amended at any time. If we find that our assumptions were wrong, we took a wrong project life cycle or something like that, so we can always correct it. The second sentence says, when a planning activity is performed differently across life cycles or not performed at all, the differences are noted, and naturally they will be corrected later on. There is no one approach to business analysis. This we also decided. The business analyst should understand the context and project characteristics enough to ensure the planning activities are sufficiently sized for the situation. Why? Because although he is not supposed to design the project itself, but he must understand what the project is and what are going to be the characteristics, as if he can provide proper context for that. Okay.
Okay.
Then is the planning section. This section describes the important things one needs to think about when defining the business analysis approach. The level of thought described in this section applies to all programs and projects. What is it? Whether it is performed all at once, at the forefront of the project, or throughout the project, regardless of degree of formality used to document the business analysis plan. So we do understand and agree that we need to have a business analysis plan before the project starts. But at the same time, if we do not have that, what is the harm? Yes, there is a little discomfort, but this is not an impossibility. If we do not have a business analysis plan, or if for that matter, if we do not even have a business analyst, still the projects happen. but there is a little bit of difficulty in such like projects. So this is only you have to decide when it should be done. Should it be done all at once in the beginning, or it could happen as the project progresses throughout the life of the project. You can keep amending it, keep creating it, and coordinating with the project manager. So this was the planning section. Next is
Yes.
importance of business analysis planning. Planning the business analysis work is critical for project success. You see, as I said, if we do not plan the business analysis, we still can do the project, but project success is not really assured. If we want to be uh, targeting the project success, then we must do all these steps very carefully. Proper business analysis planning should be done. When business analysis planning is bypassed, is not done, it is difficult to understand the scope of the work, difficult to understand the stakeholder expectation, and the appropriate amount and level of business analysis required for the project. You see, this does not mean the project cannot happen. Project can still happen, but there are some difficulties we are going to face. The scope will not be amply clear. Stakeholder expectations will not be really gathered properly. So all the load of this work will then fall on the project manager's shoulder. And that is why we have collect requirements process in project management. We have, identify stakeholder and analyze them. All these processes are there in project management, and that is because if there is no business analysis, then those activities or processes are heavily done. If business analysis is properly done, then I am relaxed in project as a project manager, because those activities will not take a lot of time. It is just a matter of confirmation. This in turn makes the estimation process difficult and can result in unrealistic expectations by those involved in the requirements related activities. So business analysts who begin elicitation sessions without a well thought out roadmap of how they will address the work will often find themselves pressed for time and rushing through activities to meet a schedule to the detriment of the project. What does that mean? Firstly, we were talking about if we do not do the business analysis planning, it is not good for project. Although the project can be done, but it is not good for project. It makes life difficult for project. Now we are talking about business analyst jumping onto other work, the later works he has to do, like the requirement solicitation, like other things. So if he doesn't plan his work and jumps into those things, then that is also not good, because he will not have a plan, he will not have a schedule for doing whatever he is doing, and he will always be pressed for time, and he will be rushing through activities, and once he rushes through activities, there is a highly likely chance that he will not be able to do justice with the business analysis. So we have seen two aspects. One, if business analysis planning is not done, project may suffer. And if business analysis planning is not done, business analyst work, the future work of business analyst, that will suffer. So coming over to the rationale.
Sir, I have a question here.
Ji, ji.
See, there's one project which has been approved and the project charter has been published. Okay.
Okay.
So when it comes to the project manager requests that the business analyst should perform its business activities. All right. Business analyst perform its activities and business analyst finds that the project is not suitable at this point of time. So my first question is, after this explaining the scenario, that the project business analyst has the powers to say that this project is not going to take place. Likewise, the project manager has the powers.
Okay. First of all, who is project manager to call business analyst for doing the analysis? Project manager has no power to call business analyst to do his job. Business analyst knows his job and he will keep doing his job. He is doing his job much before the project started, and he will keep doing his job much after the project finishes. He has his own boss. He has his own sponsor. The only relationship between the business analyst and the project manager is of coordination. So they will coordinate their work as if their efforts are not being used in the wrong direction. As far as project manager is concerned, he will do all his jobs. He will collect the requirements. He will analyze the stakeholders, the project stakeholders. Whatever is the job of project manager, he will do it himself. It is not the business analyst he will be calling for doing those jobs. Business analyst has already done those things before the project has started. He has given his business case and everything and requirements and everything to the project. And while the project manager is doing his job, business analyst is in execution of his own business analysis work. He would be performing the analysis wherever required and advising the project manager accordingly. If at any stage business analyst feels that this project is no more viable, he will inform his sponsor, and that sponsor will then find a way out. So project may be terminated as a result
Without,
of that.
so with the consent or permission of project manager or without it?
Why should project manager be consulted for that? When portfolio manager decides that this project is not suitable, then is it asked from project manager that do you want this project to continue or not? So this is
No,
a
no,
strategic,
okay.
that is a strategic decision, and project manager has no say in it, except for that project manager himself finds something wrong with the project and he reports that this cannot be done and it may be cancelled. So if he recommends that from his own findings, then it can be processed through the project sponsor, through the business analyst, through the portfolio manager and all that, and ultimately the project may be decided to close down. And while the project manager and the business analyst are collaborating, they may be sharing some data. So if project manager finds something wrong with the project, he may inform the business analyst, and business analyst may also start working on it on his own, and he may tell project manager that we have done the business analysis again and we find that this is not that big a problem and we can fix it. So project will continue. You see, it is a coordination relationship between the two. Got it?
Okay. Okay. Yes, sir. So, but again, if there is a conflict between the project manager and business analyst, say project manager say that this cannot take place, and business analyst say that done the business analyst and it take place. So, who's going to resolve it?
Okay.
Portfolio manager, or there will be a one call?
Very first thing is we do not approve of conflicts between the project manager and business analyst. That is why we introduce the coordination thing in every aspect of the project. Wherever business analyst is running along with the project manager and they both must be in consensus. In case there is a conflict, then just try to imagine the role of the project manager and the business analyst. Business analyst is looking at a big picture. Project manager is not looking at that bigger picture. Project manager is constrained within the project. Business analyst is not constrained within the project. So business analyst has a better say, but he is also not the decision making authority. Decision making authority might be the sponsor, the relevant business analysis sponsor, or for that matter the portfolio manager or the program manager. They will decide whether the project is going to continue or not. So either it is project manager or the business analyst, both can suggest. But if you talk about who is more powerful, then business analyst is supposedly more powerful.
All right, sir.
Okay, coming over to the rationale. Because requirements are the foundation for which the project is based and a key contributor to project success, the sponsor and project manager should ensure that a sufficient level of business analysis planning is conducted. Many projects are initiated with tight timelines that place pressure to address the technical activities before the plan. The project team should avoid the urge to rush into requirement solicitation without first understanding the expectations for the business analysis process and the roadmap for pursuing the work. So what we are saying is, looking at it from exclusively the perspective of the project manager and his sponsor, exclusively from that perspective, naturally they have their own processes. Project manager has his own processes and he can do all those analysis themselves. But as we said, if the business analyst exists and he has done those things, they give a great input to the project manager. So they would expect that business analysts, if he exists, have done proper planning and the stakeholders are properly identified, the, as if we can now focus on the project activities, on the timelines and other things. So that makes the life of project manager easier. So this is a coordination point that business analyst is going, his planning and his requirement gathering could could be a great input for the project manager, and if that is done, the project manager would be just confirming those things and moving on with his project work. Business analysis planning achieves the following. It sets the expectations for the sponsor, project team, and the key stakeholders as to the business analysis activities that will be performed. So there should not be any doubt. Project team, project manager, sponsors, all other stakeholders must know what is the scope of business analysis activities, what all they will do. Because if they are not doing beyond a certain point, then project team should know that beyond that, if any analysis is left, then we will have to do it ourselves. Or they can coordinate with the business analyst and may request that they should include that analysis in their work. So this planning ensures that. It also ensures that roles are identified, understood and communicated to everyone participating in the business analysis project. So during the business analysis, whatever different roles and responsibilities are, they have to be identified, they have to be understood by all who have to perform them, and they must be informed to all, as if everybody knows who is responsible for what. It achieves the buy-in and support of the business analysis process before work begins. So whatever the business analysis process you have designed, you have to go back to the stakeholders and get their consent on that. Only then you should start the work of business analysis. Provides context to support estimation of the business analysis activities. So if I have a plan, the plan would tell me how I would design each activities, how I would do the estimation of each activity. Produces a more efficiently run business analysis process because activities are not missed or excessively performed. So in many aspects, this business analysis planning is like project management planning, because this is the work we will have to do later, which we are planning in detail earlier. And if we have done that, then there is the least chances that we will miss out anything. While planning provides many benefits and reduces a number of requirements related risks, planning work should be judiciously performed to ensure the process is not too heavy or formal for the needs of the program or project. You just remember I used a term paralysis by analysis. We do not want to do that. You must understand how much deep you must go in your analysis. Beyond that, it may be useless to go further deeper, and it will utilize your unnecessary effort. It may be necessary or advisable to plan entirely upfront and in great detail in every type of program or project. When using a predictive life cycle, planning is performed upfront prior to elicitation. So your planning can, this could be one approach, that you complete your planning, detailed planning once, and then move on to the next process. next domain. But this might not be possible in all the cases. If you are having a predictive life cycle in which you know everything beforehand, then probably this might work, that your business analysis is final before you move on to the elicitation. But if it is not a predictive life cycle, it is a flexible life cycle, which is changing with the time, like we talked about the progressive elaboration in project management. So in that case, we will have to keep the plan open. It will keep changing. That is called adaptive life cycles. In adaptive life cycles, some planning is performed upfront and plans are adopted or evolved over the course of program or project. Too much planning can be counterproductive. I said paralysis by analysis. Too much planning can be counterproductive. Therefore, the business analyst needs to plan a sufficient level of detail to address the specific needs of the project, such as the size, complexity, and risk levels. I hope the rationale is amply clear. Hina, are you there? Adil, are you there? Okay, yes, sorry. Yes, so far so good?
Yes, sir. So far, so good. I have completely understood the rationale, why we have to take place, why planning has to take place, and what benefits we can come out with it.
Right, right.
Come out of.
So now let's talk about the comparison between business analysis planning and the project management planning. While I hope you understand it already, but now we will little talk about this. Business analysis is a critical portion of the overall project activities. You see, the project activities you will be doing in project management are going to be impacted by the business analysis. Better business analysis, smoother project activities. Although there is a lot many things involved in between the business analysis and doing the project activities, but the link is, there is a link between these two things. The work involved to perform a successful business analysis process is detailed, and the number of activities conducted can be quite extensive. Program or project success is dependent on adequate business analysis. Therefore, attention should be given to ensure that activities are well thought out and meet the needs of the program or project and the stakeholders. So, as we were very proactive in project management planning, we must understand we have to be even more proactive in business analysis planning. So, this is going to add a layer of protection for your project. Smoother projects can be done if there is a business analyst sitting behind the project manager. Business analysis planning and scheduling is not performed independent of project management scheduling activities. It is a best practice to have the project manager and business analyst working closely together while the business analysis approach and plan is formulated. Business analyst will develop a work plan to cover the activities that are responsible for performing. However, the work plan should be integrated into the overall project management plan managed by the project manager. It does not mean that business analyst is creating or developing the project schedule. Not at all. He is creating his own business analysis activity schedule. But while he is doing that, and as you understand, business analysis work encompasses the whole project and beyond project. So while you are doing your project and delivering the deliverables, at that time business analyst must be doing some of his own activities. He is not doing your project activities, or he is not planning for your project activities, but he is doing his own work. So though that work of the business analyst and this work of the project manager must be synchronized. That is why it says that project manager and business analyst should sit together work closely when they are developing the schedules. Now there might be a doubt. There is no project manager when the business analyst is preparing this schedule for himself, for the business analysis planning. So what? So there is no problem. When the project manager is hired, when the project manager work starts, from that point onward, business analyst will share his schedule with him and they will keep their schedules aligned. Project manager will take care of considering the schedule of business analyst when he is developing his own project schedule. You got it?
Yes, sir.
So these are very, intricate points, but if you keep understanding them, they will add to your knowledge and wisdom, and you will be able to, attempt your exam very comfortably. Conduct or refine the stakeholder analysis. This is the main process in this. There are three processes. This is the first process we are talking about as far as the business analysis planning is concerned. So the very first step is to conduct or refine the stakeholder analysis. We said we have identified the stakeholders already, and we have done a little bit of analysis also, but that was not a detailed analysis. From the business analyst point of view, this is now the time when he has to carry out a detailed analysis of the stakeholders. The stakeholder, as we understand the definition, is an individual group or organization who may be affected by or perceive itself to be affected by a decision, activity or outcome of a project or program. This definition we have already discussed also. Stakeholder analysis is a technique used to systematically gather and analyze quantitative and qualitative information to determine whose interests should be taken into account throughout the project. Now this is very interesting. This is the point where stakeholder management and risk management has many things in common. As you identify the risks, then do the qualitative analysis, then do the quantitative analysis, and then develop the responses exactly in the same way. You first identify the stakeholder, then you do the qualitative and quantitative analysis. That though it is not separately called as qualitative and quantitative analysis, we just call it stakeholder analysis. But stakeholder analysis includes the quantitative and qualitative analysis, and only then we can have the result of the analysis, how we are to deal with each kind of stakeholder. It is just like risk response plan. How would we respond to the stakeholders? What is the attitude? What is the mechanism you are going to deal with the each of the respective stakeholders? Stakeholder analysis is often conducted during the planning phase so that the project team can understand the stakeholder impacts and influences on the business analysis process as early as possible. Stakeholder analysis is performed iteratively and is revised throughout the project as a new stakeholder are discovered or existing stakeholder are determined to no longer be impacted by the proposed solution. Early planning will produce the initial stakeholder list, but further stakeholder identification will maintain the list. When there are a large number of stakeholders identified, stakeholder analysis may involve grouping the list by common characteristics, which helps the streamline analysis. So whole of this paragraph talks about a very, very simple thing. That is, when we are conducting this stakeholder analysis, this will, for the first time when you do it, this will give us a stakeholder register or a list of stakeholders in the beginning. But do not think or do not imagine that your job is done. Your job is not complete. The stakeholders have a tendency to change their attitudes, change their behaviors, their effectiveness, and also new stakeholders might get involved later in the life of the project, or some stakeholders which were identified earlier may leave the project. They no more affect the project. So you have to keep a track of all the stakeholders. Therefore, stakeholder identification is going to be a continuous process, and it will be done throughout the project. It is iterative in nature. As if you can not only exclude unnecessary stakeholders, but you can add new stakeholders. And also, if some stakeholders remain the stakeholders, but they change their values, so our behavior, our attitude to deal with them should accordingly change. If a stakeholder initially was showing less interest and I was just informing him about what is happening, now he has become very interested. So it is not only the matter of information, I rather have to get him on board, involved with my planning work. So this all depends upon what kind of stakeholder it is and how should I behave with him. That behavior which I predict to be meted by with the stakeholders, that is to be determined in the stakeholder analysis, and that is usually called stakeholder management strategy. Project managers use stakeholder analysis to assess how the stakeholder groups will influence and impact the project work. So when we talk about the project manager has a limited scope. He only talks about his project. He says how these stakeholders can impact my work. Whereas business analyst was looking at it from a wider perspective. So project manager will definitely take advantage of the list provided by the business analyst, but he would see which are the stakeholders which are impacting his work more. So he would include those in his stakeholder list. So project manager uses the stakeholder analysis to assess how the stakeholder groups will influence and impact the project work. Business analysts use the result to understand how the stakeholders will impact the business analysis process. So the objective of both for identifying the stakeholders and using their analysis is different. Project manager is looking at it from the project perspective, how they will impact the project work, whereas stakeholder business analyst is looking at it from the business analysis perspective. The business analyst considers a number of stakeholder characteristics before determining how to best conduct the business analysis activities. Both roles assess stakeholders to understand how to communicate, collaborate, manage, and set expectations. Whether it is a project manager or the business analyst, both will have to deal with the stakeholders. They have to understand them, communicate with them, collaborate with them. Lastly, the collaboration point between the project manager and the business analyst, how these two collaborate and work together in stakeholder analysis varies by organization, but it is more efficient if they work collaboratively with their project and product teams to avoid duplication of effort. I hope you understand there is a lot of work which is duplicated in business analysis and project management. If they do not collaborate, then they will be wasting a lot of time doing the other's job. Therefore, they should decide that what.
Sir, I agree with that, but yes, sir, I got your point. I agree and I understand why the stakeholder analysis is important and how it facilitated the project. But at one point of time, at one place, I'm getting pretty confused. Is in collaboration point, it states that project manager and business analyst collaborate and work together on stakeholder analysis. All right. I understand that both are working for a same project. Stakeholders are same, but the values could be different for the business analyst and for the project manager.
Of course.
All right.
So we have to create a synergy.
Okay. So my point. Okay. So my question over here is that the both of them are going to maintain different register of stakeholders.
Yes, of course, because project stakeholders are different. They might not be exactly the same as the business stakeholders. So project manager will be inherited the stakeholder register. He will adopt from business analyst. He will adopt those who apply to him project work. So it is very
Okay,
much
sir.
possible that all the stakeholders, the business stakeholders, are not project stakeholders. So only those who apply to the project manager, he will add them into his stakeholder register list.
All right. Yes, sir. I'm clear.
And you must always be mindful of the fact that, as I said before, if project manager does not exist, then business analyst is the only one deciding everything. There is no collaboration required at that point. When project manager is available, when he is now on the project, that is the point onwards that business analyst and project manager should mutually decide things on these aspects. They should collaboration on these collaboration points.
All right, sir.
Okay, so for doing this, what are the techniques for identifying the stakeholders? Naturally, we already know them. We have already studied them many times in project management also, but I'll just go through them. There are various techniques that can be used to uncover and analyze stakeholders. Using a variety of techniques helps to draw out the information from different perspectives and angles. So what we want is, we want the complete information. We want the stakeholders to be properly identified. Nobody should remain hidden, and I should be able to look at all perspectives and angles. The discovery approach may be as simple as asking other stakeholders for input. Existing documentation such as organizational charts or process flows can help to identify user groups. Common techniques that can be used in the discovery of stakeholders are brainstorming, decomposition modeling, interviews, surveys, organizational modeling, to name a few. So some of them will be discussed here, and first of them is the brainstorming. As you might already have known, brainstorming is a data gathering technique that can be used to identify a list of ideas in a short period of time, like list of risk identification, stakeholder identification, solutions or issues. So brainstorming is conducted in a group environment and is led by a facilitator. A topic or issue is presented and the group is asked to generate as many ideas or solutions as possible about the topic. Ideas are provided freely and rapidly, and all ideas are accepted. Because the discussion occurs in a group setting, participants feed off of each other's inputs to generate additional ideas. The responses are documented in front of the group, so progress is continually fed back to the participants. The facilitator takes on an important role to ensure all participants are involved in the discussion and to ensure no one individual monopolizes the session or critiques or criticizes the ideas that are offered by others. So this is what this paragraph says, but let me explain it to you. Brainstorming means that we are making people think out of the box. We have to facilitate them. We have to let their minds go free. We have to break the shackles of logic. And this is all the job of the facilitator, to ensure that everybody is able to think freely. Freely and independently, not under influence of anyone, not under even influence of any knowledge or logic. So we are even welcoming stupid ideas which are illogical, which are humorous, ridiculous. Even then, we are not going to reject any of the ideas. Anybody is welcome to give any point, whether logical or not logical does not matter. So you provide an environment in which nobody snubs anyone, every idea is acceptable, and everything which comes from the crowd is noted on a whiteboard. So all the points, no matter how bad or good they are noted on in one list. Now there is an element here in brainstorming which is somehow like the Delphi technique. The Delphi technique says that the person who has given the suggestion, his name should be kept anonymous. So we can do that in brainstorming as well. What we can do is, we can ask everybody to submit their points on a post-it note without writing their name, and then we can have all the post-it notes pasted on a wall, and that would be a mix of ideas. So now all the ideas are presented in front of everybody. Everybody is, after having read the ideas on the wall, somebody can come up with yet another idea. He is welcome to add a chit, and so on and so forth. So you will ultimately, once you have all the ideas on the board, then you can start shortlisting them by the voting process we studied yesterday. You tell everybody present to vote for these ideas. One way of doing it is maybe, the facilitator gives you 10 votes. He tells you, read the wall, all the points on the wall, and give maximum stars to the best point you think which is the best point. And you are at liberty to give as many points, as many votes or points to an idea. You can give all the 10 points to one idea, or give 5 to one and 5 to another, or 5 to one and 4 to other and 3 to other. Whatever sequence you want to do, everyone will give votes, 10 votes. If there are 30 ideas up there, these 10 votes by everyone, say there are 10 people, so there are how many votes are there? So there are 100 votes. So these 100 votes distributed on board, and whichever idea has got the maximum number of votes would be the winner. So this is a pretty simple thing, and it is a very quick method of doing the things. Within 15 to 20 minutes, you may have the conclusion of that brainstorming. But this is very good and important, because this may highlight the hidden corners which otherwise we could not have thought. Because we do not tend to think freely. We think according to restrictions and logic and influences. So be free from all the influences and think out of the box. You can come up with marvelous and miraculous ideas. So brainstorming is comprised of two parts. One is the idea generation and the other is the analysis. The analysis is conducted to turn the initial list of ideas into a usable form of information. The business analysis planning brainstorming can be leveraged to build the initial list of stakeholders, to discover new stakeholders, or to identify a list of tasks to be included in the business analysis work plan. So it could be for many purposes. Normally it is done for identification. It could be identification of tasks. It could be identification of stakeholders. It could be identification of activities, identification of risks, or whatever you want to do. And then this is the idea generation phase, and then in analysis you shortlist them. Voting process I told you, that was from the analysis part. Brainstorming is clear?
Okay, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay.
So basically, in brainstorming, we are just pushing the people, all the people to think out of the box. All constraints are resolved and everything is resolved. Right. And whatever the ideas are out there, we force them, we request them to provide some weightage against each idea, so they can, so we can find the heavy weightage idea as the winner, with the consent of all the stakeholders.
Exactly. And this is a very quick method. If you involve yourself into a discussion of these 10 people start discussing, this is the idea, then he starts fighting for his idea. Other person, starts, opposing him. And that's a lot of time is wasted. This exercise of brainstorming, normally people are not even allowed to speak. They are not allowed to discuss. This all is done in silence, and you reach a decision automatically.
Okay.
Okay, then once you have identified the stakeholders, you determine the stakeholder characteristics. After developing or refining the stakeholder list, you may have a stakeholder list already and you might have refined it now. The business analyst analyzes the characteristics for the stakeholders identified. The list of characteristics is almost endless. So the analyst will choose those that have the most significance or most relevance to the project. Yes?
Excuse me, sir. So are we using this organizational chart slide?
Which one? Oh, sorry. Sorry. Okay. Organization charts can also be used for identifying the stakeholders. The organization chart, when you look at the organization chart, you will be able to find each one of those departments and who are the people, and then you can analyze who can affect the business analyst work or the project work. So this is also a mechanism, because all the people and most of the stakeholders will exist within an organizational chart. Organizational chart will give me a huge number of stakeholders. The organization chart helps with stakeholder discovery. The business analyst reviews the chart to locate stakeholder groups who may be impacted by the product or service. This may include departments who operate or maintain a system, product, produce a product or service, support customers, or influence product or service decisions within the area under analysis. While existing organizational charts are used as a starting point or the charts are built from scratch, the work to finalize the chart is completed through a series of discussions with the managers of the departments being modeled. Based on the size of the organization and how the organizational charts are being leveraged during the analysis, the business analyst determines whether it makes sense to take a role organization chart down to the individual stakeholder level. If the goal is to only identify the number of groups impacted by the project, the role organizational chart may be the sufficient level of detail required. Business analysts should keep in mind that roles may be conducted differently across the organization and may vary regionally or by type of customer supported. Additionally, stakeholders from the same group may use a product or service differently. When differences are identified during analysis, the model should be updated to reflect the role for each of the variations discovered. Ultimate goal is to uncover all the stakeholders who have needs to be met by the product or service and may have requirements to provide for the product or service. Any oversight of just one role type can result in implementing a solution that fails to meet the needs of hundreds or even thousands of customers. So it has to be done very carefully. When you are digging down the organizational chart, then you might find people with similar roles, but their expectations may still be different. So if that is the case, you have to understand that in one department a clerk requires a different thing, and in another department a clerk requires a different thing from your project or your business analyst, business work. So you must take care of that. As we said earlier, this is a highly proactive activity. When we are planning, we are doing a highly proactive activity. Ji.
They're all good.
Okay, we were talking about the characteristics. A stakeholder, we should determine those characteristics. There could be any number of characteristics possible. There could be hundreds of characteristics, but we have to select the appropriate characteristic. And naturally, the ones listed here, they are not necessarily required for each one of the project, each one of the business analysis, but these could be a guideline for you. But I have already said that if there could be a list of 50 characteristics, so you don't have to apply all the 50. You have to apply the most appropriate characteristics from your business analysis work point of view. One characteristic could be the attitude. Consider analyzing the stakeholders' attitude to the work to identify which stakeholder supports the project and proposed solution and which stakeholder do not. Why are we looking at the attitude of the stakeholder? Because if this stakeholder is a supporter of the work we are doing, we can use him to advertise our work, to convince others that we are doing the right job. If this stakeholder is neutral, then I might influence this stakeholder to, I might educate him, I might provide him information as if he becomes my supporter. And if this is an opponent, he always opposes the idea, then I must at least neutralize him, at least give him the responses to whatever his objections are. So he may not be my supporter, but at least he should stop speaking against us. Stakeholders who are positive about the project and solution may serve as project champions. These stakeholders will assist the project team in building excitement and support for the solution. Identifying non-supportive stakeholders can help identify areas where additional collaboration is needed. Spending more time with these stakeholders may uncover unspoken business needs, requirements, training issues, resources constraints, or past and current experiences important for the project team to understand. Uncovering stakeholder likes and dislikes may even bring to the forefront unspoken concerns about the proposed business analysis process. So you see how much this attitude influences and affects in determination of the stakeholder characteristics. Attitudes are not solely based upon likes and dislikes. A stakeholder who exerts dislike or disinterest in a project may simply see no value in the initiative or final solution. A stakeholder group may be included in the project because its business processes are impacted, but these stakeholders may not be recipient of direct value from the project, from the work. Stakeholder group may be recipient of additional work after a project is implemented and therefore never display a high level of interest. These stakeholders whose workload is likely to increase may never become supportive of the project. Understand the concerns of the disinterested stakeholders and look for ways to obtain their engagement despite the lack of support the stakeholder may have towards the project. So you have to be a little bit of a psychologist. You have to understand the psychology of these stakeholders and you have to deal with them accordingly. This is the need and expectation of each and every stakeholder. So their attitudes must first be noted. Then is the complexity. The stakeholder group can be considered complex for a number of reasons, included but not limited to that this is comprised of a large number of stakeholders. This could be a complex. The large size could be a complexity. There's so many stakeholders, like the whole population of Pakistan is your stakeholder. So this is a complexity. R is made up of stakeholders with vastly different needs. So there is a one category of stakeholders who have different needs from all others. But this is a small group of people, like a group of non-Muslims have their own concerns about the project, whereas all the Muslim community of the stakeholders have no objection. Right? So we have to take care. This is a complex situation. We can't, penalize the smaller community. Has a number of business processes impacted by the project. So if there is a stakeholder or a group of stakeholders who has a lot of impact on a number of business analysis processes, then probably this stakeholder has to be given extra importance. No matter how small he is, but if he can impact, then this is a big deal. Exhibits a lack of uniformity across business processes. So this stakeholder is a big stakeholder in the beginning, but while we are doing the work, he becomes inconsistent and he becomes invisible, and again at another stage he becomes important, and so on and so forth. So he is not showing uniformity in his behavior. So I have to accordingly to deal with him, and this is a complex situation. Interacts with a number of business units to complete their work. So more than one business unit is coordinated communicating with. The stakeholder interacts with more than one business unit, and therefore we have to take care of all of those aspects. Then last is perform work across a number of IT systems and are systems external to the organization. So where the interfaces are with the external systems also, such like stakeholders may also result in complexity. Understanding complexity levels will help when qualifying and planning the number of requirement sessions to conduct, when determining the right amount of requirements related documentation to produce, and when determining the level of formality to apply in these deliverables. Complexity levels are also helpful to understand when assessing solution options and the change impact that a project will have on stakeholder groups. Naturally, if you have that kind of complexity defined, then probably you can do due diligence with that. You can give it more importance. PMI has a number of ways of doing these kinds of research, and recently they have done a lot of work on complexity, and they have come up with a study which is called Navigating Complexity, Identified Multiple Stakeholders. So this is an interesting read. All the studies which they are carrying out under the head of Pulse of the Profession, you must look at them and see them, which interests you. But they are really very interesting situations there, and this is the knowledge beyond the standards. These are the surveys and reports, and the scholars have written about these things. Therefore, they are very important. So navigating complexity is the standard which probably you should refer to if you are dealing with complex situations. By understanding the factors that drive complexity on projects and among various stakeholder groups, the business analyst is able to more effectively plan the best approach for conducting the business analysis work, including selecting the best techniques for eliciting and analyzing the project requirements. So the collaboration point between the project manager and the business analyst here, project managers are interested in understanding the complexity level of the project in order to allocate sufficient time for project activity, including collaboration and communication with the stakeholders. Business analyst assesses complexity to understand how best the approach business analysis activities and to understand the impact that changes will have on stakeholders. So both of them, project manager and the business analyst, collaborate with the stakeholders, not with each other in this, but collaborate with the stakeholders from their own perspective. Project manager from project perspective and business analyst from the business perspective. So this is from the Pulse of Profession, which gives a diagram understanding complexity. Most defining characteristics of complexity in that study is multiple stakeholders. More stakeholders make things 57% complex. So 57% of the results were in favor of multiple stakeholders, that this causes the maximum complexity. Second number is ambiguity of project features, resources or phases. 48% people voted for that. Significant political and authority influences, unknown project features and resources, dynamic changing project governance, significant external influences, and so on and so forth. So you can always consult this list to define complexity in your specific case. Then is the culture. We have ample discussion on culture in PMBOK, but from this standard, let us see, consider the cultural diversity that exists among stakeholders and make necessary adjustment to the business analysis process to ensure these differences are considered. So if there is a cultural diversity even locally, you have people from the various provinces and various locations, and you have to deal with all of them with the same manner. So you have to look at their values, and sometimes we are dealing virtually with international stakeholders. So in that case, you have to take care. So whatever kind of environment you are existing in, the culture will be governed accordingly. Many aspects of culture may be worthy of analysis, including age, nationality, group, department, or organizational culture. Culture can impact how the business analysis proposes, communicating with the stakeholders, eliciting requirements, conducting requirement walkthroughs, and running the prioritization, approval, and change processes. Culture and location are not the same thing. Even when all the stakeholder groups reside in one location, there are cultural differences among the groups. Cultural differences impact how stakeholders perform their work, interact with others, team members, contribute to the decision-making process, interpret non-verbal communication, understand the primary written and spoken language of the team, question or interact with authority, view their role on the team, raise questions or issues, negotiate, and deal with conflicts. You see, these are the things you must consider, because if you discuss each one of these items, you will find out that these things are extremely important, and uh, you know people have different attitudes. There, you might have been in company of such teams where uh, they do not want to raise questions. They just want to be done with the meeting and go home. They are not interested. So no questions are raised, no interaction is taking place. how people perform their work. This is also different from place to place. There is a lax environment in some organizations. There is a very volatile environment in some organizations. This is the culture we are talking about. How people interact with other people, team members. Are they friendly? Are they suspicious of each other? How do they contribute to the decision making process? So this greatly differs from organization to organization, and especially when you join a new organization, you will find out there is a great disparity which you have to settle in. A business analyst who takes the time to recognize and understand the cultural differences will gain an awareness and appreciation for the diversity and can use their understanding to run a more effective business analysis process. जी आई एम सॉरी जी, आप कुछ कहना चाह रहे थे अदील?
Yes, sir. In the previous slide, I've raised a hand a long time ago, but my question was, I raised my hand at the point. All right, I can recall that point where I raised my hand. There's a point where you told me that the project manager is going to consult with the stakeholders, and business analyst is also going to consult with the stakeholders. And both of them are consulting with the stakeholders in their own capacity.
In their own capacity.
Now, my question is that in their own capacity, right? So what I feel, are they overloading the stakeholders a lot? Because project manager is going to ask one question and the same question is going to be asked by the business analyst. As we know that the major of the work of business analyst and project manager work has been overlapped. So there are more chances that their questions can be same.
I think we are actually trying to reduce this disparity. We do not want this repetitive thing to happen. Therefore, the project manager has adopted the stakeholder list and he has been given the requirements what the stakeholder has collected. Now the problem is that there are certain issues which needs clarification. So project manager will only talk to the stakeholders for clarification of those few points. He's not going to start the whole process right from abolition. He's not going to do everything yet again. He will just seek clarifications on certain points.
All right. So my point over here, in collaboration point, it was clearly mentioned that the project manager and business analyst should work together, right? In this slide, we have learned this. So if both of them are working together, that I agree. At one point of time, there is a good stakeholder register has been prepared, but for the clarity of points, PM is also going to ask the questions, and after some point of time, business analyst is going to ask the same question. So to some extent, I agree that the point of view of asking the question is it could be different, because when business analyst is going to ask related to the product as well, and project manager will be only specific to the project.
Okay.
So yes.
If business analyst has to ask something when the project manager has already communicated with it, isn't he supposed to collaborate with the project manager and ask him or see his documents if that question has already been asked? You understand my point? They are also collaborating with each other. They can look at each other's documents. So he may get his answers from that document, or if there is still something pending, then he can go to stakeholder and talk to him. We don't want to bother the stakeholder unnecessarily. We want to have a very highly collaborative environment.
All right, sir. So, all right, I got your point. I understood this thing. So, just for my convenience, what I understood is the business analyst and the project manager prepare a register, stakeholder register.
Yes.
They write the question, whatever it is. They write the questions. Business analyst go and find the answers for his questions. He write those answers.
Not necessarily.
And it is.
Project manager can also ask questions. This is not necessarily the business.
All right, sir.
Because business analyst is not working under project manager. He has a different scope.
So,
He has to look at the things from the business perspective. Project manager might have specific project related questions. So project manager will ask his own questions. And definitely there is not going to be a duplication, because the questions asked with respect to project would definitely be different from the questions asked with respect to the business. The level of detail is
okay, sir. Yes, I'm clear with this point.
right. So next attribute is experience. Understanding the experience level of the project stakeholders provide helpful information for planning activities. Elicitation is the gathering of information. Elicitation may be completed more efficiently when stakeholders have prior experience participating in requirement workshops or validating requirements than with a team of stakeholders who are unfamiliar with the business analysis or do not understand the value of business analysis activities. Because most likely these people who are unaware, they will waste time of the business analyst and ultimately not be very useful. So if people have experience in dealing with these kind of environment, business analysis workshops they have been conducting or they have been attending, so they will be more fruitful, useful. A system and business analyst should consider the number of years of industry experience stakeholder have, whether they have worked with the organization for an extended length of time, or whether an individual stakeholder is new to the organization. These factors can influence how requirements are validated and approved, as well as the number of stakeholders to engage from a stakeholder group. Business analysts will also find it important to analyze experience across stakeholder groups to ensure that a sufficient breadth of business knowledge is represented on the requirements team. Where gaps are identified, business analysts working with the project manager should seek to acquire additional resources to provide the needed or missing experience for the requirement related activities. So requirement is not only the subject of the business analyst, it is also the subject of the project manager, although the perspective is a little different. So here they can collaborate more interactively. So although business analyst it is his job to collect those requirements, but at the same time he can always collaborate with the project manager where required. So all these factors must be taken into account regarding the experience. Then is the level of influence. Understanding the amount of influence a stakeholder has within an organization helps to identify where influence can serve as a motivator as much as it can serve to distract or deter others from embracing the work of the project team. What is the influence of the stakeholder? How much influence does it carry? And how that influence can be used on the project or for that matter the business activities? A person's level of influence is often tied to his or her position within the organization. However, influence is not solely associated to a person's rank, reporting structure, or job title. A person's level of influence is also affected by business relationships, reputation, knowledge, or level of experience or successes within the organization. Analyze the level of influence to understand the power an individual or stakeholder possesses. This analysis will highlight those who can help rally for the project solution as well as identify those that can hinder project success. Through this analysis, the business analyst will be able to identify influential stakeholders and areas where more time needs to be spent on building relationships and collaborating with key individuals. So you see, uh, we need to understand the level of influence of each stakeholder, and we should be able to make use of that influence in a positive manner. The business analyst will be able to identify influential stakeholders and area where more time needs to be spent on building relationships and collaborating with key individuals. Meaning what? That he can use this influence. Business analyst is trying to use that influence to facilitate his work, his business work. Location and availability, global workforce and an increase in the number of organizations supporting a virtual work network environment are two trends that may make analyzing location a worthwhile step in stakeholder analysis. We do understand this is a global fact now that there are virtual teams. People are not always co-located. Sometimes they are on the same location. Sometimes they are not. Then their availability maybe they may not be available physically, but online they can be made available. Or there could be certain jobs where we need to have physical availability of a person. Even when the project team is centralized, the business analyst should understand whether remote work is supported. The business analyst should review the stakeholder list and identify where each stakeholder is based and the location from which each conducts their work. If stakeholders work from multiple locations, then the frequency that stakeholders work from each location should be noted. When stakeholders work remotely, it is also helpful to identify the methods used for connectivity. This information can be used when determining the best approach of collaboration. For example, conference calls, desktop sharing, web conferences, etc. Understanding availability, including working hours, and whether a flexible work schedule is used or a 4-day work week is in place is beneficial as availability impacts the frequency by which the business analyst can conduct elicitation sessions. Business analysts may choose to elicit requirements through facilitated workshops when key stakeholders are local, but use interviews or surveys when key stakeholders are dispersed or when time zone differences make scheduling conferences called difficult. Documentation analysis may be used when stakeholders are not available at all. So here you see, if the stakeholder cannot be made available, you have to use other means like video conferencing and all that, and we are exactly using one of those means to communicate with each other. We are not located together and still we are available to each other. There might be some advantages and disadvantages, but still we are able to reap some benefit out of it. So then you might have heard about the flexi hours, flexi working. So what style of working is there in your organization? What kind of these stakeholders are they, do they work on flexi hours, do they work on 4-day week or whatever? You see, it is very common in North America now that people work from home. They are employed by big organization, but they only work uh, 3 to 4 days in their office, and remaining days they work from home. Now this is an initiative which is taken to reduce traffic from the roads. If half of the people do not travel daily to the work, then the traffic on the roads will be much lesser. So this is a very good strategy because those people are able to work from home exactly the same amount of work, and they are also comfortable there. So this is very common in North America. Location affects a number of business analysis planning decisions, such as determining the techniques that are most effective to elicit requirements, estimating how much time is required to complete the business analysis activities, deciding on the formality and level of detail required for the business analysis deliverables, deciding on the types of models to use, determining the approach and frequency of collaboration, determining how requirements will be managed, maintained, and shared with project stakeholders. So all the interaction which is required to be done, you have to pre-decide on that. So location affects all of them. So you have to devise a mean. If somebody is not present to be for a meeting, I can always conduct a video conference with that person. So that I must understand the location and authority availability of that person, and accordingly I can tailor all these things, although we understand all these items listed below are affected by the location. Then are the techniques for grouping or analyzing the stakeholders. Stakeholders can be grouped once their characteristics are understood. So we have already talked about their attributes and characteristics. So once their characteristics are understood, similar characteristic stakeholders could be grouped in one group. So I can have as many groups, maybe 4, 5 or 10 groups, and I say that these are the common characteristic groups. Stakeholder lists can quickly become long and difficult to manage. Therefore, placing stakeholders into groups will allow for easier management of information. Groupings can be structured by similar interests, common needs, level of importance, by roles, motivations, complexity level, location, or many other qualities. Primary and secondary designations can also be used to separate stakeholders by those who are primarily or directly impacted by the project or solution compared to secondary stakeholders who are indirectly impacted. The business analyst should choose the type of stakeholder grouping that best meets the objectives of the analysis. So this is the decision of the business analyst, but it should be to be aligned with or to best meet the objectives of the analysis. There are several techniques that can be used to group or analyze stakeholders such as job analysis, organizational modeling, personas, process modeling, risk analysis, and stakeholder maps. So there are many latest tools and models and methods which are being used, and these things are becoming even more interesting. Like, we did talk about the personas and user stories and all that. These things are very interesting to do. They are not cumbersome. They are much more interesting. Job analysis is a technique used to identify the job requirements and competencies needed to perform effectively in a specific job or role. The technique is often used when a new job is created and when an existing job is modified. Organizations use job analysis when drafting job descriptions and when determining the best person to fill a position. The output of job analysis may include a number of details such as a description of the work, a depiction of the work environment, a detailed list of the activities a person will perform, a listing of the interpersonal skills required to perform well in that job, or a list of required training, degrees, and certifications. Job analysis may also be used to determine training needs, formulate information needed to write a job posting, and to support the performance appraisal process. Business analysts can review the job analysis to understand how particular roles are performed by stakeholders. When the project entails replacing or revising workflow and business processes, the business analyst uses the job analysis to understand how the existing job is currently performed. When the project entails the creation of a new job, job analysis may be used to specify the tasks required for the new role. So these things are pretty simple. Uh, Anything you want to talk about?
No, sir, not now, because so far what we have studied is being a very common, and I can understand how it works and how it goes. So far I'm all comfortable.
You might be also very much aware about the persona analysis. This is a fun way of doing the same thing. We analyze a persona, not a person, a hypothetical person. Like, written here, Paul the purchaser, right? So you create an artificial character, Paul the purchaser, and you start talking about it, what he needs, what he wants, and things like that. So you create a whole job description around that person and his interaction with others and other processes. Persona analysis is a technique that is conducted to analyze a class of users or process workers. It is a powerful tool for understanding stakeholder needs and for targeting product design and behavior of each class of user. So, a persona represent a class of stakeholders. Our persona is a fictional character created to represent a user group or group of stakeholders who have similar needs. During planning activities, the business analyst uses personas to understand the characteristics of various stakeholder groups and can apply that information to select the best business analysis approach to meet the needs of the project. Personas are often used in IT system development and product development to help design or map out a user's experience. While it is often not possible to obtain requirements for every stakeholder in the stakeholder list. So basically, persona is being used where collecting information from the stakeholders is a problem. So you do it by example. You create a artificial character persona and you say, okay, this is Mr. Accountant and Mr. Accountant wants all the people to report to him and he does this, he does that. So he is representing by Mr. Accountant all the finance people or the accounting people. So all the roles they perform, he will group them into this category and he will classify them what they do. It becomes necessary to group the list of stakeholders into various user classes and then build a persona for each class. So those are user classes, which we call the classification of the categorization of the stakeholder, and name of each group is called persona. Objective is to analyze uh, usage information or draw out user requirements to determine how a user class interacts with the system or how a user class would use a product. The difference between a persona and a stakeholder is that the persona includes much more detail about how it interacts with the problem or solution, such as device literacy and preferences, preferred method for searching, frequency of performing specific actions, etc. Generally, a business analyst does not need this kind of in-depth information for all the identified stakeholders. In stakeholder analysis, types are identified. However, the business analyst also identifies specific individual stakeholders. In persona analysis, the business analyst focuses on types, often giving them a name and a picture for fun, like Paul the purchaser. Unlike stakeholders, a persona may or may not have a material interest in the outcome of the project. A persona simply may be a user who has no influence. A persona is written in the form of a narrative and tells a story about the user class. Personas describe the goals, behavior, motivations, environment, demographics, and skills of the user class. The information provided in the persona is behavioral in nature, versus the information that is obtained from a job analysis that would be descriptive in nature. A persona is usually 1 to 2 pages in length. Have you ever gone through a persona?
No, sir, not exactly.
You must search it out on internet. There are many helpful tools there. And if you read a persona, that is very interesting. That is not a boring job. You read it like a story. Oh, this person does this. He is very fond of eating. And that, so you are defining the whole user class with that one hypothetical name. So this is a fun way of doing the thing. And this is much more interesting rather than the dry work the business analyst does. So
All right, sir.
this is an example. You will have to provide the picture and a name to that person. What does the persona look like? What is its name? Choose a picture or a name. Then you provide the details about that persona, relevant characteristics and behaviors. Consider demographic, job style, spare time, etc. And then you provide the goals. Why would the persona want to buy or use the product? What problem should the product solve? So what are the goals of this persona? So let us see. This is Mr. Peter. We have provided a cartoon or a photo for him. And as far as the details are concerned, he works as a product manager for a mid-sized company. He's 35 years old, holds a marketing degree. He got experience working as a product owner on software products with agile teams, has had some Scrum training. Now, what is his goals? Has managed mature products successfully, now faces the challenge of creating a brand new product, wants to leverage his agile knowledge but needs advice on creating innovative product using agile techniques. So this profile pretty much explains this category of people, which could be called Mr. Peter. So this was an example I inserted into it. Then we have assemble the stakeholder analysis results. I think we can do this slide. As stakeholder characteristics are analyzed, the business analyst may choose to document the results of the analysis.
Sir, only just a creative thought came in my mind. Why can't we publish CVs in type of a persona analysis?
CVs?
Yes.
You see, CV is specific to a person. A persona is representing a group of people, a like-minded group of people. So CV is more detailed kind of a thing. Here
Okay.
we just want to create a picture about what this category of people are, what who they look like.
But over here, but
Yes.
sorry to interrupt, but in this example you've shown me that the Mr. Peter is doing all these things, right?
No, no, no. You see, we have specifically said Mr. Peter is a name for, is a hypothetical name for a group of people.
Okay.
He does not represent a single person. He represents all the product managers in the mid-sized company with 35 years of age and a marketing degree and so on and so forth.
So all these characters, what I believe is all these are the characteristics of a single person
These are
who holds a
hypothetical.
master degree.
These are okay. Okay, let me explain. Let us have a group of stakeholders. Like, these are all the, sellers. These are the contractors we have. So I call contractor as Mr. Kobe, right? And I put a
Okay.
hypothetical figure of Mr. Kobe here. So what all the contractors do, I will summarize it in a personalized manner. Mr. Kobe is a personalized character, but that character represents whole community of stakeholders. So it is just the personalization you see here is just for projecting Mr. Kobe's character. But Mr. Kobe is generally any of the contractors. He works as a contractor, and you can say
Okay.
he has been working for 20 years as a contractor, and recently he has got a project. So all the contractors have not the same characteristics, but generally and hypothetically, this describes this community. Got it?
Okay. Same thing goes in algebra like X. Mr. X is doing this and
Exactly.
Mr. Y is doing this.
Exactly. But with
Okay.
in that algebra, we do not know the value of x. Here we know the value of x, but we are
Yes.
generalizing the value of x into a persona.
Okay. Okay, sir.
Right. So as stakeholders' characteristics are analyzed, the business analyst may choose to document the results of the analysis in a way that can be shared with the project manager, project team, and sponsor. Much of the information being gathered and analyzed could be considered sensitive in nature. Therefore, the business analyst should exercise care when distributing the analysis to a broad distribution group. The intent of analyzing these characteristics is not to stereotype the stakeholders, but to obtain a better understanding of them so that the decisions made when formulating an approach to the business analysis work is optimal and conducive to running a high performance business analysis process. The additional stakeholder characteristics shared after the stakeholder analysis provide the project team with insights for determining how best to collaborate and work with the stakeholder throughout the entire life cycle, especially during the business analysis activities. So once we have all this data, we have to put it all together into one form, and we the classes I have made, the groups I have made, they are not something binding, but I have generally put people in certain categories, and those have now to be assembled and allocated specific, you know, uh, characters for that. So characters have been consolidated here. They have to properly analyze and record it. This is what the purpose of the assembling the stakeholder analysis results. Matlab, in a way, we are concluding the stakeholder analysis results. So this is the final list of stakeholders in front of us. Is also mentioned that it cannot be shared with everyone. So to resolve that issue, because how do you want to deal with each stakeholder, that is your strategy, and yet you might not like to share this information with everyone. Therefore, we may separate this document, this management strategy from the stakeholder register and keep it restricted, or even if it is a part of the stakeholder register, we can uh, restrict the stakeholder register to be only shared with people allowed. So this
All right,
brings
sir.
us to the end of today's lecture. Jay, any questions?
So far so good. Understood whatever you have taught. Alhamdulillah. So there's one thing which I feel I'm lacking. See, I did my PMP good 3 or 4 years back,
Okay,
and after that I've been doing my technical job.
right.
So during your session, I strongly feel that I'm lacking in project management because I've not been doing its activities.
Right.
Further, my studies 4 years back, I haven't studied PMP. So I just wanted to ask you a favor. Is it possible if we can have a small session for the revision of PMP for say 1 hour only session?
Yeah, we can do that. We can do that. As yesterday we talked about those NPV and everything that I took out from the cost management chapter. And if you like, I can talk about project life cycles in the next lecture.
Yes, sir. Basically, my point to doing this again, I'm not going to appear in the exam of PMP again.
I know.
Whatever the formulas chapter is and procurement section is, we are not going to go through with it. But the basic things are also I'm confused and I'm confusing basic stuff as well. See, today I was with the project life cycle.
Okay.
And lately I realized that it was a basic thing in chapter 2 of PM walk, and it was supposed to be answered by me rather than I've been asking a question on this.
All right.
So it was a little embarrassing for me, and this is how I've been starting getting demotivated.
All
So
right.
in past 2-3 sessions, I've been trying to study by myself, but it's a complete failure that I have been not doing it.
Okay.
So anyway, let's start it in such a way. Tomorrow we'll spare 1 hour time for PMP revision. All right. Or if you don't want to use this time, you can tell me. I can come anytime after iftar or anytime, whatever you say in
I
the
I can
morning,
give you
anytime.
I can give you another solution. What you do is I have recorded lectures of first whole of PMP available. You can listen to the first two chapters, and if you have any questions, you can note them down and we can discuss those. What do you say?
Sir, I've tried that option. Truly speaking, it's been a long session. You've been
Okay.
teaching. I went to the YouTube
Hmm.
to see those sessions. I've been following the PBA sessions as well,
Okay.
just to keep myself updated.
Hmm.
But again, I will try. I'll go with 1 or 2 chapters. I'll take it as my homework today.
Right. Right.
Tomorrow we'll see. After 1-2 chapter, for the next knowledge areas, I'll request you to just give me the high level what we have started doing it and how we have been concluding it. So
Okay.
it will be a great help for me.
Okay. What I can do is I can talk about these things which we come across right now, like the project life cycle and that. We can discuss that tomorrow, and that will link the whole thing. And whatever problems you keep facing during your preparation, you keep telling me. I'll keep talking about them.
Okay. All right. We'll try to take this route. So the summary is that I am going to do my homework, which is chapter 1 and 2 from your presentations and slides and from
Yeah,
everywhere.
exactly.
And after that, one small glimpse of the whole how the project will go. You will provide me, and then I will be in line with you and
Yeah, I can do that. I can do that. No problem.
all right. Great, sir. Great. So further, I've requested two things from you yesterday.
Yes,
In not yesterday
as
exactly.
as always, I forgot it.
No, sir. No problem. No problem. I'm your student. It's my responsibility to make you remind every time. So I don't mind it. So you have to see for the JD of the business analyst and the that payments
Receipt,
receipt.
receipt. Okay, I'll do that. I'll
All
do
right.
that.
Sir, my last question is. Again, I've got. I was waiting for some sources to prepare myself for the exam.
Mm-hmm.
So Alhamdulillah, I've got the finances now, so I can appear in the exam. So
Okay.
I'm pretty serious to appear in the exam. So I need to have a small session for this as well. And we are going to fill up the application. What will be our strategy? How to appear in the exam? Or you are going to discuss all these things at the end of the sessions?
No, I
This is
think
I want to ask.
you should do it immediately because now you apply, it will take some time. So do it as soon as possible. So whenever you want, tomorrow or day after tomorrow, when you are ready, we can discuss about how to fill the form.
All right, sir. I'll start doing my homework. My target was to complete my application till Friday.
Okay?
So coming Friday this week, so that I can submit my application and they can review it and they can respond me in within 10 days. After that, inshallah, by end of next month, I'll appear in the exam. After 1 month, more detailed study. So once my application is filled, I'll inform you. And I'm facing some difficulty in filling up my form or experience. So I've got some basic questions. So I'll ask you tomorrow on those as well.
Right, right. You can do that.
All right, sir. Great. Thank you, sir. Thank you for extra time. I'm really looking forward for the extra favor, which I've asked you for the PMP. Right.
Most welcome, most welcome. Take care. See you tomorrow.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Allah Hafiz.